In our continuing look at the 5th anniversary of the war in Iraq, tonight we examine the intersection of war and cinema. 9 years ago, Kimberly Peirce made a striking directorial debut with Boys Don't Cry. After a long absence, she's made her follow-up film, Stop Loss, about soldiers forced to return to the war. Jared Bowen recently talked with Peirce about the movie and whether America is ready to see it.
When a soldier's service is involuntarily extended beyond his or her normal term, it's called a stop loss. It's a situation rife with anger and resentment, with emotions explicit as they are in the new film, Stop Loss.
You leave on the 22nd, shipping back to Iraq. Subsection 12305, Title 10, by the authority of the President. You've been stop lost.
If those men get stop lost and they go back over there, it's a challenge, because they feel a responsibility to be with their men, but that doesn't always mean that they want to go back.
Miss, you sent this to me yesterday.
Damn, Sarge, your fiancé is hot.
The movie begins in Iraq with camaraderie and combat, but when the soldiers return home to Texas, camaraderie devolves into despair as they struggle to resume life with the ghosts of war tugging at their psyches. And then Ryan Phillippe's character is stop lost.
This cannot be happening. No.
I knew that I wanted to make a movie about the soldiers, who they were, why they were signing up, what their experience at combat was, and upon coming home. So just as I started that undertaking, my little brother told us that he was signing up.
Stop Loss is director Kimberly Peirce's first film since 1999's Boys Don't Cry. Why the gap? She immersed herself in the lives of soldiers partly through her brother. Her film, she says, is born out of the way soldiers see themselves.
They brought home these soldiers' videos, and they were images that I had never seen. They were from handheld cameras. We were seeing war and combat and the soldiers' camaraderie from the soldiers' viewpoint, not only in the experience, but also in the way that they edited. This was their fantasy of themselves or how they wanted to be portrayed.
Peirce's observation and understanding resonate in this film, but it may not resonate with audiences for the simple fact that it comes too soon and not after the fact. Cinematically speaking, culture and war don't commonly coalesce.
We're licked, Joe. Licked? When is a nation licked?
World War II saw a spate of war films during the war, but most were non-challenging looks at American success on the fronts. The more uncomfortable look came later with films like The Best Years of Our Lives.
Come on, get out!
Fred, wake up!
Godowski!
Wake up!
Godowski! She's burning up! Get out! Get out!
Fred, wake up!
Moving ahead to Vietnam, the most seminal films came even longer after the war's end.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
The still difficult Apocalypse Now and The Deer Hunter came years after the Vietnam War, and Born on the 4th of July came decades later.
If this war is wrong, if this society lied to me, it lied to my brothers.
Today, though, we see the Iraq War unfold on our television and movie screens simultaneously.
Why has that changed, that culturally it's become accepted to see these movies as the war unfolds?
Yeah, the first thing is that we have much more direct and instantaneous access to information. The fact that I was IMing with soldiers while they were doing missions during the day and coming home and IMing at night is extraordinary. The fact that they can fly home and it takes like 20 hours. They're not taking boats back. The fact that they're shooting video images and uploading them on YouTube.
But so far, audiences don't seem interested.
But my son has spent the last 18 months bringing democracy to a hole and serving his country. He deserves better than this.
To date, Iraq War movies, including In the Valley of Ella and the all-star Rendition, have bombed at the box office. In making Stop Loss, Peirce rejects the notion that it's war-fatigued and hopes her movie will succeed on its novelty.
When I look at them coming home and to re-assimilate to their families, that's very universal. We've seen that before. But when you see them being sent back after they've completed their tours and they're done, and these were patriots who signed up, that we haven't seen.
All right, and Jared Bowen is here along with Tom Doherty of Brandeis University. I mean, Jared, isn't part of the fact that this is more like a documentary? It's not kind of a fictional...
Well, and that's what it started out to be. And because of the immediacy of how things are coming back, she realized that angles that she was approaching and stories that were surfacing in her mind, she was turning on and seeing on Dateline. So she couldn't really keep up with it. She loves feature filmmaking, so that's why in the end she decided to turn these stories into a feature film.
Yeah, Tom, I'm not sure you can compare it to things like Apocalypse Now or The Deer Hunter, because there was that really eerie, because it was real, but there was that fictional element of the sort of the monster lurking in both of those films. I mean, this is so day to day.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think you got a good sense of it in Jared's piece is that, you know, the World War II trajectory, you know, the great myth of the World War II film is the combat unit comes together. It's this disparate elements of, you know, the Italian guy, the Jewish guy, the Irish guy. They come together and fight the enemy. The Vietnam film is a story of the combat squad falling apart and killing each other. It's not accidental that, you know, the three big Vietnam movies, Full Metal Jacket, Apocalypse Now, Platoon, The Deer Hunter, they're all about us killing ourselves. And I think when you get to the Iraq War genre, you know, filmmakers kind of like generals are fighting the last war, and all these Iraq movies to me seem to be about Vietnam. They all have the sort of the tropes of the Vietnam film, which typically is the, you know, the shattered veteran, either in body and mind, coming back to native shores. And I think that doesn't have the kind of cultural resonance that it might have, you know, 12 years after Vietnam.
Well, this will be interesting because it's being marketed, it's presented by MTV, so it's being marketed to a younger generation, to people who have friends, brothers, sisters that are fighting the war now. And it does feel very immediate because the whole first part of the movie takes place in Tikrit, and it feels like you're watching CNN. It feels like what we're seeing on the daily newscasts. So it is terribly, terribly immediate. And I think that that's where the discomfort will be. Either people will identify with these stories on a fictional front, or I kind of disagree with her to the point of Iraq fatigue, that I think that if people aren't watching the news and they aren't reading the newspaper for these stories, why are they going to pay $10 to see it fictionalized?
Well, does she have a storyline in the sense of Boys Don't Cry, which, I mean, she embellished that a little bit, but that was pretty true to the story. Is there a storyline like that?
She does have a storyline, and she's actually, I commend her so much because she really has spent so much time understanding these soldiers and getting to know their habits and their psyches. It completely comes through. So it is about this group of friends who come home and they disintegrate, as Tom was just saying.
Yeah, and isn't that's, I think, part of the cultural disconnect of why these movies haven't been successful, is that, you know, like in the Valley of Elo, who you showed a clip of.
I never heard of that.
Well, it's you know, an infantry squad comes back from Iraq, and to a man, they are a murderer, a torturer, or whack jobs. And I mean, you had 4 veterans on last night.
They're not, none of those things.
Yeah, and I think that explains sort of the cultural disconnect between the filmmakers and their audience here in so many of these films.
Are there other examples of where the Iraq War has kind of seeped into the pop culture? I mean, you've done a lot of theater recently. I mean, is it there too or no?
Well, I think recently the Huntington staged Streamers, which was again, going back to Vietnam, I think you've completely touched on something here. They staged Streamers based on Vietnam veterans. I don't, to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything done in local theater or even in the art scene, because I think people are afraid that there isn't enough disconnect.
Yeah, you're starting to see, you know, that same trope of the damaged Travis Bickle Vietnam veteran coming back into a lot of popular serial television. Dick Wolf's Law and Order is kind of notorious for using the Iraq vet as a convenient you know, ticking time bomb in urban America, and that was a slur the first time around, and I think people are not accepting it this time around.
The other thing is, I'm not sure how many more people are being stop-lossed at this point. Is it still that common? Because a lot of people are serving shorter terms.
Well, they have a disclaimer at the end of the film saying 81,000 people have been stop-lossed. People have tried to fight it with lawsuits, but because the war is ongoing, there's really nowhere that they can get with it. There's just not the time to address it.
All right. I'm going to watch it. Sounds good. I loved her. I love Boys Don't Cry. All right, Jared Bowen, Tom Doherty, thanks so much. All right, that is it for Greater Boston. Tomorrow night, it's Beat the Press, the reviews of Obama's race speech, plus why New York Governor David Paterson's affairs are fair game, and the British press forced to apologize. That and more tomorrow at 7 on Emily Rooney. Good night.